Hello, everyone. I want to talk about something that is really blowing my mind at the moment, which is this. What do we do with limiting beliefs, with limiting programming, all that sort of the repetition that goes on in our subconscious that if we're lucky and we're self-aware and we're on the path of self-discovery, we will witness, we will see, and we try to change it. So I have been on this path for many, many, many years. And every time I always thought that we should try to um, overcome the old patterning, overcome the limiting beliefs, try to fix them, try to change them into unconditional beliefs, right, etc. In fact, one of the things that I'm trained to do, that I actually do, if you sign up and do a soul reading with me, I actually can help you get to the root of why a limiting belief, how it was formed in your particular life. And we go into the childhood and we go into the story because what's really at the heart of all belief and how things have been formed is emotion. And if you know anything about how the universe, like the language of the universe is energy. So emotion is energy in motion. So how things create in the 3D reality is when we emote, either through joy, through love. Those are the things that become actual 3D manifestations through our emotions, right? So if you have a loop that says, this is an example, and I'm going to tell you why it showed up. Everybody gets what they want but me. And the feeling that accompanies, that hangs on to this limiting belief is resentment. Well, that's a very, very dense, energetic program that if that's something that I'm holding, whether conscious or not, what I'm going to constantly be rubbing up against in the 3D reality is opportunities to witness this, feel the trigger, and then what I used to do is to try to shift it, overcome it, etc. Now, here's the breakthrough. I have been really doing a deep dive into non-dualism, which if you're not familiar, I'm just going to drop this name right now so you can start to watch his videos because they're pretty profound. Rupert Spira. And I've been living in surrender for the past almost 4 years now. What I've learned is always trust my experience over anything else because truly my energetic makeup, all the thoughts, beliefs, sensations, everything, including yourself, is very unique. So I experiment. I try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that. And then eventually I kind of naturally outgrow one teacher and I move on to somebody else, but I'm never looking for the teacher. This is important. It just shows up in my YouTube feed. And this particular teacher showed up right at the exact moment I was starting to experience what I now understand is non dualism. So the idea is two things, really, all things can exist, and we are the awareness that holds all of it. So it's very similar to the analogy of a movie. There's the movie, the story that's playing on the screen, but the screen never changes and the screen never judges what is playing in the story. The screen does nothing but just lean back and allow all the story to play out. So it allows all experience to play out. Now, I have been experimenting with, like I said, the skin rashes where I healed eczema twice, but two different methods. First method was very Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I used to follow him, was very into him. And his method is very much about overcoming the past self, about seeing, the future version of you, aligning with that version, really getting clear on how she would feel if she had X, Y, and Z. So when I healed it the first time, I had the image of my beautiful baby soft skin, and I noticed every time I looked at it I would react. So I stopped looking at my skin and I was like, I'm only going to close my eyes when I shower, when I put lotion on, and I'm just going to imagine my skin is already cleared, it's already done. And then voila, it did clear up. The second time it came up, I was like, because I'm so aware, I have to use my lived experience over any other teaching, and I know it's not about cutting and pasting and just doing the thing again, even though I tried. I tried and I recognized, or my subconscious, or I want to say my higher self told me in a dream, hey, babe, this isn't working because you're avoiding. Whenever we avoid something, it just gets stronger and bigger. So there was a fear there. So I said, I'm really exploring this idea of just allowing myself to look at the skin and also know it's healed, right? So it's a little bit, I want to say harder because you've got to ignore what your eyes and your brain tells you because they're connected, and they say that this 3D reality and what's on your skin is actually worse than what you're saying, but you just have an inner knowing. But I know it's healed. I can look at my skin, be aware of it, see how it, all the things, and feel how it's definitely more itchy now that I've declared I'm going to do this whole new thing. But I still know, and it can be messier. It was messier for me. And I was like, oh my God, it just felt like, how do I know this? And that's when the self trust really kicked in. And I was like, I just know it's working. I just know that I can trust in this new method. And I just experimented, and voila, it went away. Here's the brilliant new epiphany. I have this journal prompt that I write every morning, as well as others, which is, what is being mirrored back to me? Now, I asked this question specifically because there are patterns that show up in our 3D reality, and sometimes we're not aware of them. So by asking myself in the morning, what is being mirrored back to me? I'm just unloading, oh, these are some patterns, these are some things. Oh, that's interesting. And what I realized, what was being mirrored back to me, is a lot of my friends are getting these really great opportunities coming to them just out of the blue, out of nowhere. And I'm just like, wow, this is really cool. And it's interesting because I was very happy for them, la la la. And then when I went to sleep, and this is why it's so beautiful. When we go to sleep, our conscious mind goes to sleep. So what gets kicked up is our subconscious mind. So I wake up multiple times, usually in the night, because, hi, welcome to my 50s. I have to go to the bathroom. And all of a sudden, this program starts playing, which is everybody's getting what they want but me. And usually, what accompanies that program is resentment. And so I'm like half asleep, and I'm like, "Oh," and you can get taken down because you're so, again, you're like half asleep. But I've asked, when a program like this shows up, can I just witness it without diving into the story of it, without letting myself get emotional in it, right? So you can intend this before you go to sleep. So I have. So when I caught it, I was like, oh, that's crazy. Because I had no idea that that was underneath the surface, right? So I woke up in the morning and I'm like, okay, what do I do with this belief? Everybody's getting what they want but me. And I thought, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to pull it closer. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to let it exist, because what have I learned? Everything is allowed to exist. When we accept everything and we are aware of it, things tend to dissolve on their own. This is what I've learned. This is how my lived experience marries this newfound philosophy, or this belief called non-dualism. And I thought, I'm not going to do anything with this belief. And this is very, very, very like the opposite of what I used to do. I used to try to journal from the opposite, or try to give myself evidence, this is why this is not true. So I'm trying, I'm efforting. And it's funny because this whole experiment is about surrendering and accepting what is, including the things that we don't like. So this is very, very in alignment with this whole journey, the bigger picture of this whole journey. And I'm just starting to realize that all of the other stuff I was really trying and efforting, which is fine. I was where I was. We are where we are. But now this feels really, really aligned with the bigger picture. So I'm just going to allow this to exist. I'm not going to try to change it. I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm not going to try to even go into the story of how did I get this, whatever we can guess. We can guess why that belief is there, right? I'm just going to let it live. I'm going to let it exist. And because all things truly can exist without the emotional baggage or charge. Now, this is where you have to know yourself. You have to know, is this authentic? Because the mind will say, oh, yeah, this can stay, this can exist within me. And then go, yeah, I can accept this as long as I know in the back of my head I'm accepting it because I know it's going to dissolve it, right? So there's a need there. There's the mind will try to attach it and say, yeah, we're accepting this, we're letting it exist, but really, wink wink, we just know it's going to eventually dissolve if we do this. So I'm going to do this thing to try to really get rid of it, right? So the other part of this, which I think is so profound, is you have to ask yourself a question. Can I live with this forever? So can I live with this feeling forever of resentment? Can I live with this? Like, I really tried it on with the skin rashes because I'm like, when the second time when it came up, it was so disheartening and it felt like, oh, it's such a nuisance and it's so irritating and not to mention itchy. And, it's like shameful. You don't want to wear, short sleeves because people can see it and it draws attention. So I'm like, I can't live with this forever. That was my first thinking, right? But I let that exist because it was honest. And then recently, I've said to myself, there are people that have, acne, let's say. I've never actually had acne, thankfully. Um, and it just is. And there are people that have had, rashes or things or scars, and it just is. And I was like, the real truth is, can I live with this forever? Meaning, will the eczema come back? And maybe it will. Yeah, I could because I ultimately know it's also going to heal on its own. I don't have to do anything to try to fix it or put different creams or eat a certain way. That was the biggest difference and the biggest change was I don't want to manage the condition by taking all these things away in order for this to heal. I want to do nothing but connect to the higher truth, which is truly my body knows how to heal. There obviously was too much stress in the body, so it's being pushed out, and I'm allowing it to dissolve on its own. That is a whole different ball game. So I said to myself, the reality is it can come back. Like if I get stressed again, it can come back. And I'm okay with it because I know ultimately I know how to let go of trying to get it to heal. I know that my body will naturally let it dissolve on its own. So that is so empowering. That means I'm not threatened or scared or afraid. I'm just allowing the natural, my natural, whatever's going to come up. I'm not threatened by anything in the 3D, especially this skin irritation, which is very irritating. So, getting back to why this is so profound, this means when I go to sleep at night and I wake up to go to the bathroom and I have some program that's telling me everybody gets what they want but me, and I'm feeling resentment and I'm caught in it, now I don't really have to react. I don't have to go, oh no, I have this belief still, or oh no, what does this mean? Is it going to stop me from getting what I want and want? All this kind of stuff. I can literally just go like, oh, okay, yeah, I see you, and then flush the toilet and go back to bed. You know what I mean? Like there doesn't have to be this big reaction. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this thing? How am I going to get rid of it? Which is what we naturally do because we're so conditioned to think we have to get rid of things, we have to fix things. And you can just allow it to exist and it will dissolve on its own because what happens when we illuminate something, we turn the big light on, it doesn't need to try to shake us to get attention. It already has our attention. So that means the charge that once was underneath trying to get our attention now can just start to open up and dissolve. And I will say that there's still benefit to it, just depends where you are on this journey, I think. This is what I think. Because there was so much benefit to actually walking myself through many belief clearings that I've done on myself, as well as others, because there's really power in knowing how we created the story or what circumstances, and then owning it, taking ownership of it, and becoming empowered by it to then change it. There is power in knowing. But this approach for me along my path and where I am in my journey is just, it feels so peaceful. It feels like true freedom because then nothing is wrong. I'm never having to like, oh, I got to fix this and fix that. And I have to overcome. Everything was about overcoming and efforting and trying. And now I can just be with it. I can just be with it. Like, how beautiful is that? Isn't that a lot more fun than thinking I got to fix and do this and da, blah, 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 blah. I mean, whew, getting off that for sure. So, in the comments, I would love for you to out one of your limiting beliefs that you feel is being mirrored back to you right now. And I want you to put the emotional charge that is accompanying this belief because there's always a charge attached to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't affect us. Okay. So just put that down. Just put one. Don't go crazy. And I would love for you to be a little bit more specific. Don't put I'm not enough. I want the specific. I'm not enough to have a relationship, or be more specific and put the emotional charge behind it. Because what we want to do is just light it up, give it so much light, so much energy that you become so aware of it that I think it really will dissolve on its own. That's the experiment. Okay. So, sending you all so much love. Remember, experience is our greatest teacher. So, experiment with your life. Be fearless. Take care.